Good morning, Summa scholars, and welcome to the Daily Summa. Today is Thursday, March 27th, the third week of Lent. I'm going to offer up this study for my friend Joe and his family.
Well, thank you, sir. That's appreciated.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning,
morning.
Joe. How are you?
Tired,
Yes.
but doing good.
I had a wonderful sleep last night. It was so good that this morning I did the snooze thing again. I was just sitting
Nice.
there curled up, just smiling like a little toddler in his mama's arms, just smiling. I was like, oh, this is so wonderful. I'm getting back into that fasting sleep,
Mm-hmm.
There's a special kind of sleep that comes with water fasting. Let's move the skull real quick so I can get rid of this paper.
Okay.
Voila!
Bam.
Bam, we're moving through the desert. Look how far we've come, Joe. Remember back when it was we were on the other side of the Red Sea, hadn't even made it over yet. We've been through so much.
So much.
Yeah, and we're kind of in the middle of the desert here. The funny thing about it is, you move up towards the goal, and then you kind of go around in circles right there by the goal, which is the promised land over there, which amazingly Jews are living in now. That's still mind blowing all the time. It's very strange. I remember a buddy of mine who's atheist saying that, he had read there's a report from a guy who studies nations and kingdoms and how they rise and fall. I can't remember what this historian's name is, but he's done research on kingdoms and what makes them rise and fall. There's a certain pattern. And the one thing he said is, I think this guy's atheist, but he said the thing he can't understand is Israel. How Israel has maintained not just the present day Israel, but I mean for 2,000 years, being kicked out of the country, coming back, kicked out, coming back, having the great Roman armies occupying the land, and still the nation remains, and then as a nation with laws and governments and Sanhedrins and rule systems and everything. And then now back, he says this shouldn't happen. This shouldn't be. This defies all of the rules of how nations rise and fall. Still mind blowing. But anyway, we're getting ever closer to the goal, and then pretty soon it's going to shoot us back out away from it and take us far away from the goal. That's why I had the character in my novel say, Brother Dionysius, that what if that travel through the desert is an algorithm? I thought I would do something this morning. From time to time, I read from the Divine Office, and yesterday I forgot to read it, didn't have time, whatever. But there's a little section from Theophilus of Antioch, who was the Patriarch of Antioch in like 160 to 180 or something, died in the 180s. And he wrote about knowing and seeing God. And so it fits in with what Thomas is saying. Of course, Thomas would have certainly read this letter that Theophilus wrote to Autolycus. The cool thing is he is the bishop or patriarch or whatever of Antioch. So and that's 160. So he would have been there, I guess, right after Paul. So think about it. Like when you go to a church, like let's say Bishop Barron came to St. Pete's or your local parish church, and then like 20 years later you show up. You would have been like, where did Bishop Barron sit? Where did he go? So that's what would have happened with Theophilus. He would have got to Antioch and he would ask the church there, where did Paul sit? Where did Paul teach? Where did he hang out? What did he do? That's kind of cool, huh?
Yeah.
But
I would love to do something like that. It'd be awesome.
Yeah. I mean, he's right there. right there after the apostles. And I think, actually, didn't John take Mary to Antioch? I think John and Mary went to Antioch to live. Correct us in the comments, guys, if you know. But I think so he would have also been like, where did John and Mary live? That would have been cool. All right, guys, let's hear from Theophilus, and keep in mind everything we've been reading about in Thomas in the Summa Theologica about vision, seeing God, how we know him, this life, and all that. Just a little reading. It says, if you say to me, show me your God, I will say to you, show me what kind of person you are, and I will show you my God. Show me then whether the eyes of your mind can see and the ears of your heart can hear. It is like this. Those who can see with the eyes of their bodies are aware of what is happening in this life on earth. They get to know things that are different from each other. That's distinctions. They distinguish light and darkness, black and white, ugliness and beauty, elegance and inelegance, proportion and lack of proportion, excess and defect. The same is true of the sounds we hear, high or low or pleasant. So it is with the ears of our heart and the eyes of our mind in their capacity to see God. Capacity would be a word that would refer to the concept of a kli, a vessel, as we've been talking about. Your capacity to hear and see God. God is seen by those who have the capacity to see him, provided that they keep the eyes of their mind open. All have eyes, but some have eyes that are shrouded in darkness, unable to see the light of the sun, blind people. Because the blind cannot see it, it does not follow that the sun does not shine. The blind must trace back the cause of their to themselves and their eyes. In the same way, you have eyes in your mind that are shrouded in darkness because of your sins and evil deeds. A person's soul should be clean, like a mirror reflecting light. If there is rust on the mirror, his face cannot be seen in it. In the same way, no one who has sin in him can see God. And then it goes on. But I thought that was a nice little tie-in to what we've been saying about the capacity to see God and how we see God. It also reminds me of a buddy of mine, very dear friend, Eric Altamont, who died down in Mexico, was stabbed in the back by a Mexican guy on the beach. I might have talked about him before. At least I know I have in Chesterton's. But Eric was on vacation in Mexico, and this guy was harassing a couple over on the beach. And Eric, was expert in martial arts, went over to stop the guy, got the guy away from this couple. And as they were walking away from the couple back to Eric's area, and Eric was talking to this guy, the guy stabbed him in the back with a knife. And Eric died in a Mexican hospital. Very, very tragic. Met all of the old music crew and everybody at his funeral. But pray for him every morning and every night for his soul. Lord, elevate his soul to yourself. But I remember him talking to me once at a show, and he had become atheist, and we were chatting about it, and I asked him suddenly, I said, did you become atheist before or after you had sex for the first time? And I remember the look of shock on his face, and he goes, after? And I shook my head and I said, yeah. And I just kind of left it at that because I saw it hit him. This is what Theophilus is saying. Your sin is what blinds you to the vision of God. So let us recall that, folks, that your decisions in life affect how your awareness and sight of reality come to you. Anything to report, Joe, or should we just get started on this?
I mean, I did get those pictures.
Oh, you did. So do you want to put them up?
Sure.
Guys, you have to know that Joe and I have a little agreement. Hold on, don't put them up right yet. Joe and I have a little agreement. I send him things, preferably through email, and ahead of time, and then he has time to like put them in the system and have them ready to go. And this morning, I sprung on him two pictures from the red staircase that we walked up with Mother Gabriella that I said I would put up today. I waited until what? 80 seconds before the stream, Joe?
Yeah, I think it was like 7, 9, like 14 or something. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And I did it through text, not through email. Problem is though, the pictures are in my phone and my phone is not working right.
That you couldn't help that. That's different.
Yeah. But I could have sent the things last night. Okay, let's pop up those pictures. We do have pictures of the red staircase, and we have pictures of Mother Gabriella out on the river when we made it. There's the staircase, and we made our way down to the river, and Mother Gabriella was standing on that rock that the kind woman Lisa showed us. And you can't see it from this angle because I'm not on the rock, but from that rock, you can see through that bridge and down to the waterfall down there with the paddle wheel and everything. It's very cool. And there's the smiling, happy Mother Gabriella. So there it is, folks, just as was promised. I can tell from my hair, I'm getting a little dreadlocks back there. Perhaps I should take the old brush, do something with it.
Yeah, air showering is good for you.
Well, I'll have you know, I took 2 baths yesterday.
Hey, look at that. So you just have like a very long hair thing going on. That's fine. That's cool. It's cool. It's cool.
It's just what my hair is, dude. I do sometimes shave it though. Someday I may come in and just shave. I'm shaved bald.
There you go. Always possible.
That happens sometimes. Also, I don't pay people to do my hair. To me, that's silly. Paying money for some. I used to have a hairdresser in Houston. She was at first a fan of my music, then we became friends, and she was a pro hairdresser. Her son also has a very expensive and hoity-toity beauty shop in Houston. Makes a lot of money. But anyway, she did like Paul McCartney's hair, other actors. She did famous people's hair. Anyway, she has her own little studio in her house, and she would always insist on doing my hair. Didn't cost anything, so I said sure. She also insisted on coloring it. My hair grayed early than most. And she was like, I want to color it. And I said, we argued about this for a while. Finally, I was like, if you're going to do it for free, go for it. But you have to leave some of the gray in. Can't have you taking it's goofy looking. When you see an old dude and he's got like black hair, you know? To me, no offense. I know a lot of guys do it. Whatever. I don't want to offend people. Actually, I don't care, but it's silly. So anyway, I told her she could do some touch-ups or whatever you want to do for your fun. And but leave some of the gray, so she left the gray streaks in. Plus, at that point, I was not yet reverted back to the church, and so I was having success with the ladies from the gray hair, with the young ladies. Like you can't take the salt and pepper, you can't take the gray fox away.
Right.
All right. On that virtuous note, let's move into the Summa Theologica, talking about what was the question we had just left? Whether anyone in this life can see the essence of God. We're ending up what Thomas's replies. So for funsies, we are going to hop in right in the middle of Thomas's reply at the top of the page. And this is to be referred to some high mode of prophecy, so that God seems to speak, though in an imaginary vision, as will be explained later in Secundae, question 174. Look at that, Joe. Thomas is like, we'll explain it. That's Secunda. That's not even this book. This is Pars Prima. This is the first part. He's saying, I'll explain this to you in the second part of the second part. Question 174.
Yeah, that's like 3-4 years away, something like that.
Yeah, something like that, maybe more. Yeah, probably 4 years away. But it's exciting though, because he's going to explain to us about visions, ecstasies, being transported out of yourself. That should be a fun hang when we get to that. Remember, guys, this beaver galleon is sailing into some really cool waters. You should stick with us. Oh, also like and subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Write a little comment. That was great, or thanks, or your hair looks stupid, or something. Anything to write in the comments that helps the algorithm shoot us out to more people. Okay, in treating of the degrees of prophecy, may we also say that Jacob spoke thus to designate some exalted intellectual contemplation above the ordinary state. I guess Thomas wants to say, now I was thinking about this, why doesn't Thomas want to ascribe the vision of the essence of God to Jacob? And then I realized, or it came to me, I could possibly be wrong about this. We'll see what Thomas says later. But my guess is that he doesn't want to attribute that to Jacob because it was pre-Jesus. Like perhaps he has this idea that the patriarchs wouldn't be able to receive this lofty vision as Paul did, being pulled up into the third heaven, seventh heaven, whatever they call it. I think it's third heaven. I don't know that for sure, but that seems to be, I mean, because it's, why wouldn't he attribute that vision to Jacob? But to me, just like you can have Duns Scotus's thing about the blood of Christ was applied to the Blessed Mother so that she would be free of sin from her conception, the Immaculate Conception. God being out of space-time, if he can do that, then he can apply the blood of Jesus to the patriarchs. It says Abraham believed God and it was accounted unto him as righteousness. Well, the belief would have zero effect if not for the blood of Christ. It would not achieve righteousness. So I don't see why he couldn't give Jacob a high and lofty vision. But that's something that I can't argue with Thomas about because he has already gone on to his blessed reward. Maybe we can argue about it at around the first cigar, me and Mike and you and everybody. Brian, Bud. We'll have a discussion about that when I get back to the hang.
Ryan probably has a thought or two, I'm sure.
See what Ryan has to say about that. All right, we're going to reply to objection 2, which is Ralph. Here we go. As God works miracles in corporeal things, so also he does supernatural wonders above the common order, raising the minds of some living in the flesh beyond the use of sense, even up to the vision of his own essence. As Augustine says, of Moses, the teacher of the Jews, and of Paul, the teacher of the Gentiles. This will be treated more fully in the question on rapture, second part of the second part, question 175. Now, first of all, we should just take note the obvious here. He just said Moses saw the vision. So that's Old Testament. Why not Jacob? Don't know. We could, it would be fun to just skip ahead. I don't think I have that book though. I think my Secunda Secundae is at your house, Joe. But I do have it in here. I have the full Summa in my iPad, right. So I could scoop ahead. Here we go with my beginning the thing with saying a word wrong. We could scope out ahead. I don't even know what I was trying to say.
Skip ahead, I think is what you were saying.
Skip. That's what it is. We could skip ahead and see what he has to say about visions and ecstasies. People love that kind of thing. We love the fancy stuff. People love to talk about visions and ecstasies, but you know what they love to talk about more? Like if you make a video on YouTube, what's going to get more hits? Talking about demons.
Yeah, probably.
People love to talk about spooks, ghosts in the house, demon possessions. People love that stuff. Once you progress more on the way of God, those things become extremely boring. Demons are pretty they're like they act they're predictable. they're predictable. They just act a certain way, and it's not interesting. The light of God brings about more creativity and art and new projects and new wonders and new connections, and it's more interesting. Anyway, reply to objection 3. Shimon, all things are said to be seen in God, and all things are judged in him, because by the participation of his light, we know and judge all things. For the light of natural reason itself is a participation of the divine light. As likewise we are said to see and judge of sensible things in the sun, i.e., by the sun's light. Hence, Augustine says, the lessons of instruction can only be seen as it were by their own sun, namely God. And therefore, in order to see a sensible object, it is not necessary to see the substance of the sun. So in like manner, to see any intelligible object, it is not necessary to see the essence of God. You're still seeing the effects. It's what we've been saying, and you've all heard before. Cause and effect flowing from God are effects. And you may not be able to perfectly see the essence. If I had the guitar here and I played the song, or we hear songs from a famous artist, or we see sculptures from a famous artist like Michelangelo, you get to know something about the person, but you're not gazing into the very essence of the person. But you're under the light. You still are connected to them. You're under the light of their essence, their personhood, and receiving information about them. Okay, reply to objection 4, which is Reuben. Reuben's coming on deck. Intellectual vision, well, he's replying to Reuben. Intellectual vision is of the things which are in the soul by their essence, as intelligible things are in the intellect. And thus God is in the soul of the blessed. Not thus is he in our soul, but by presence, essence, and power. We had discussed this before. He is not in our soul as his essence, but by his presence. He is in our soul, but by presence, essence, and power. As intelligible things are in the intellect. Intellectual vision is of the things which are in the soul by their essence. Intellectual vision is of the things which are in the soul. It is by their essence that they are imprinted upon the soul. The essence imprints it upon the soul. If Ryan Budd is watching this, or Dr. Rebard, or Mark McNeil, give me any further insights into what Thomas is saying here in reply to objection 4. Do we want to take the time to, let's see what objection 4 was. You don't have to go back to it, Joe. I'll just see real quick. Further, according to Augustine, those that are in the soul by their essence are seen by intellectual vision. But intellectual vision is of intelligible things, not by similitudes, but by their very essences, as he also says. Therefore, since God is in our soul by his essence, it follows that he is seen by us in his essence. And the reply was, intellectual vision is of the things which are in the soul by their essence, as intelligible things are in the intellect. And thus God is in the souls of the blessed. Not thus is he in our soul, but by presence, essence, and power. It sounds like it's saying that he is there by essence, and also he's not, and I'm not quite sure what that means. So let's move on. I didn't bother to send that question to Doc Rebard. I haven't been bothering the fellas much lately with questions because I haven't had a lot of questions. And I do remember reading this yesterday and wondering about that, but I neglected to send the question out. Maybe I'll make a note. Let's see if I'll make a note and ask Dr. Rebard what is he saying with question 12, article 11. Ask Doc. Okie doke. Article 12, moving right along. Article 12, whether God can be known in this life by natural reason. Let's see what Larry thinks, or what Larry's asking about at least. Larry says, but Thomas, it seems that by natural reason we cannot know God in this life, for Boethius says that reason does not grasp simple form. But God is a supremely simple form, as was shown above. Therefore, natural reason cannot attain to know him. Well, he's saying he can't, so it looks like Thomas is going to say he can. And I think this is where we were are getting into what I had said yesterday, that he's going to talk about ecstasies and visions, perhaps. Let's see. Objection 2, Ralph. Further, the soul understands nothing by natural reason without the use of imagination, but we cannot have an imagination of God, who is incorporeal. Therefore, we cannot know God by natural knowledge. Pretty good objection. Objection 3, further, the knowledge of natural reason belongs to both good and evil, inasmuch as they have a common nature. But the knowledge of God belongs only to the goods for the good. As Augustine says, the weak eye of the human mind is not fixed on that excellent light unless purified by the justice of faith. Therefore, God cannot be known by natural reason. That's a great quote from Augustine. And he uses the word justice properly. Remember, guys, justice means the proper alignment of things. When people hear the word justice now, they only think of court, law, that show. What's that show where they show the cops getting the guy and then they show the court case?
Law and Order?
Law and Order. Yeah, that's how people think of justice. By the way, a friend of mine was the camera woman on the Law and Order TV show. She quit a couple years ago, but she was the camera woman. She was young. Camera woman for Law and Order for a few years, many years, whatever. A lot of stories she has from Law and Order. Okay, so justice is not just that. Justice is the proper alignment of things. So he says that the weak eye of the human mind is not fixed on that excellent light unless purified by the justice of faith. Faith rightly aligns your vision. Okay, therefore, who is it that's talking? Therefore, Shimon says, God cannot be known by natural reason. Thomas says, on the contrary, it is written in Romans 1 that which is known of God, namely, what can be known of God by natural reason, is manifest in them. Them is the things created. If you remember first Romans chapter 1, the famous Romans chapter 1, the invisible things of God are plainly seen by that which is visible. Manifest in those things which are visible. That also, again, can be applied in a way to Aristotle's thing about we come to know spiritual things through material things. I answer that. Let's hear the rational response. Our natural knowledge begins from sense. We all know that now. Hence, our natural knowledge can go as far as it can be led by sensible things. But our mind cannot be led by sense so far as to see the essence of God, because the sensible effects of God do not equal the power of God as their cause. Hence, from the knowledge of sensible things, the whole power of God cannot be known, nor therefore can his essence be seen. But because they are his effects and depend on their cause, we can be led from them so far as to know of God whether he exists, and to know of him what must necessarily belong to him as the first cause of all things, exceeding all things caused by him. Again, this is going back to what God is not. We can know from sensible things what God is not. Thomas made it very clear earlier in the Summa that when we say certain things of him, we are in a sense, and he always uses that word in a sense, which is very slippery, but in a sense, we are saying, when we say God's power, his attributes, his unity, his power, his simplicity, when we say those attributes, we are actually using a sort of similitude when we say what he is, because we can really don't know what that power is. We really don't know what that unity is. We know what the term unity means. We know what the term power means, but we don't really know what it is in regards to God. So Thomas made it clear that when we say what God is, we are actually using a sort of similitude to say what he is. And what we're actually doing is saying what he is not. It's just easier in our minds to say he's powerful. He has power. Because we kind of in this world know what power is. in our limited way of expressing power. We kind of in this world know what unity is from our limited way of understanding unity. So we apply those words, which are not accurate in regards to the essence of God, but we apply those words as a sort of similitude, talking about the essence of God. But really, the more proper way to say it is God is not weak, or God is not multiplicity. That's the most accurate way to say it. But it's simpler to just say, instead of God is not multiplicity, we say God is unity, even though we don't know what that word unity actually means in regards to the actual essence of God. I hope that's clear. We'll be repeating it over and over again. That's why repetition is the mother of learning, folks. But from the visible things, we can know whether God exists, and we can know something of his divine power. We don't know exactly what that power is, but if you look out with the astrophysicist into the great spray of universes that pour forth from the Big Bang, and you see the mighty Leviathan leap up from the deep and do a splash on his back, the sperm whale, and we see the chrysalis turn into a butterfly, we get some knowledge that, okay, this being is a shtickle powerful. You get the point that he's powerful. When you see the intelligence of man, you get to see something of the intelligence of God. Hence we know, moving on, hence we know that his relationship with creatures, so far as to be the cause of them all, also that creatures differ from him, inasmuch as he is not in any way part of what is caused by him, and that creatures are not removed from him by reason of any defect on his part, but because he super exceeds them all. That's again what he said about the angels. The angels do not have defects in a sense of, like we talked about, the fire, building the fire, putting the thing in a cone. We put all the fire in the right place and the airflow, and then we all say that's perfect. We don't mean it's perfect like all perfection. We mean it's perfect as regards a campfire building project. So we are not perfect as regards to perfect, but we are perfect moving towards perfection in regards to our human nature as a human, and also the suppositum, whatever you are as your individual person. You're getting to know yourself, you're becoming your best self. So there are defects, but not in the sense, defects in regards to the super exceeding perfection of God. All right, reply to objection 1. Thomas is going to train his eyes upon Larry. Reason cannot reach up to simple form so as to know what it is, but it can know whether it is. Again, we're seeing the same theme repeated. Staring at our beloved's hands, even though we've seen it before, even though we've known it before, even though we've done it before, we do it over and over again, more deeply getting to know the beloved. Reply to objection 2. Let's see what he says to Ralph. God is known by natural knowledge through the images of his effects. Do we even remember what his question was? Objection 2. Further, the soul understands nothing by natural reason without the sense of imagination. Okay. God is known by natural knowledge through the images of his effects. Even though we have an imaginary, and remember, imaginary is not just making up Lord of the Rings in your mind. Imagination is that image which is imprinted. If I look out at the horse, I can close my eyes and still see the horse in my imagination. Also, it's moving through the imaginative power. All those particles, all those rays of light have to be assimilated into some cohesive image in our mind. Remember, what's actually hitting my eyes, the rods and cones in my eyes, is just a bunch of light, data points. My eye goes into my brain, and then somehow, which nobody understands, neither philosophers nor scientists, that is turned into a conscious image. Very, very mystical and beautiful. And that conscious image is that faculty that turns that into an image is called imagination. What I want to stress to you is that imagination is not separate from reality. Okay. Reply to objection 3. As the knowledge of God's essence is by grace, it belongs only to the good, but the knowledge of him by natural reason can belong to both good and bad. And hence, Augustine says, retracting what he said before. Oh, we got a little retraction. I do not approve what I said in prayer. God, who willest that only the pure should know truth, for it can be answered that many who are not pure can know many truths, i.e., by natural reason. Is that his? It's a book called Retractions. I guess not familiar with it. That's quite lovely, quite beautiful. This plays into the church's teaching in Vatican II Council of Vatican II, the famous teaching, which is also in the Divine Office. We read it once every year. That God is ministering always and calling all people to himself, no matter what their place or position is. And then that famous section from Vatican II starts off with the preeminence goes to the Catholic Church. It's the true deposit of faith. Jesus gave the keys to St. Peter, and whatever you bind on earth is bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth is loosed in heaven. And the chair of Peter has the privilege to, when commenting on doctrines of faith and morals, to be without error. That's why we have a surety in God's, the Holy Spirit's leading of the church. But the Vatican Council says after that, he is speaking very clearly to the Protestants and evangelicals who are baptized because they have the Holy Spirit. God has given them, they know Christ, they know the Holy Spirit. So God is speaking through them. And then next, the Vatican Council says, the people of the book, our brother Yaakov, the Jews, they have a most excellent covenant with the Lord, and he is quite clearly speaking to them and through them and using them. And then after that, the Mohammedans, it says, they believe in the one God, and they have and they are seeking the truth, groping, as it were, in the darkness of Muhammad's his shtickle mistake he made. You know, Muhammad at first wanted to become a Jew, and they rejected him. Always problems. There's a lot of rabbinical commentary, by the way, in talking about the dangers of rejecting someone from the community. And they always mention, of course, Hitler. They mention Hitler being rejected from the art school and all that. And then they mention Muhammad being rejected from the Jews. Were like, yeah, no. I don't know all the details of it, but I do know he was rejected. So he was like, I'll go start my own thing. And it's kind of bitten the Jews on the ass a little bit. So did the Hitler thing. Anyway, they still, the Vatican Council still says that God is calling them, and they're giving preeminence too, giving preeminence. First, the Protestants, Jews, Mohammedans, and then it says nature religions, those who worship sticks and stones still, and who have, you know, Indians, American Indians, and all that. They are seeking the truth, and so God is still there working with them and drawing them to the truth. And they have truths. I don't know if you've ever been around a Buddhist who's serious about it or seen stuff from Japan. I've not had the privilege to go to Japan yet, but one of our favorite quotes, one of your favorite quotes that I think you might have told me about, Joe, is from Bishop, what's his name? Who wrote
Fulton Sheen.
Fulton Sheen. What is it he said about the Japanese?
This is a big paraphrase, but because I just can't remember the direct quote, but
Sure.
basically that the Japanese would be the most Catholic nation if they ever did convert. It's basically the idea, like the amount of intensity in their faith would be enormous.
Yeah. Their knowledge, their deep understanding of order, simplicity, honor, community. So this is what is being said here. Oh, and then I should finish it off. Vatican Council finally goes down to the atheists. Even the atheists who, through no fault of their own, that's the big phrase. We're talking about invincible ignorance. If someone is ignorant of the things of God through no fault of their own, then God is with the atheist teaching, guiding, pulling, lulling, alluring, wooing, that's the word I'm looking for, wooing them to himself. And they can have knowledge and truth. I think of this family here who has this house. I was thinking of it this morning out on the porch. Not all of them believe, I think they all believe in God, sort of, but kind of like, well, we don't know exactly, and be a good person. But the point I'm getting at is they run their lives so well ordered and beautifully, because I was looking at this, they have a little sled set out on the front porch. It's not, I don't know if you could even use the sled. It's more of a decorative sled. It has some holly on it and some ribbon. They put it out for winter. And then when they get back here, it's going to be spring. So they'll put that sled away and they'll put out some other decorations. But my point is, this family, although not devout Catholic, although not super believing in God, and certainly not the Jewish God, they, at least some of them, I'm talking generally about this family, even though they don't have that kind of belief, they move with the seasons. They keep their stuff in order. They take new things out and put old things away. So they have a more Catholic, and for those of you who aren't Catholic, you won't even know what I mean with that. Why am I saying it's Catholic? Because Catholic is liturgical, and we move with the seasons, and we do the things are changed at the church and in our houses. But they are more Catholic than many Catholic homes I see, because their homes just stay the same. Also, my mother does that. She'll put things out for the seasons. She's evangelical, not Catholic, but she's putting things in and out for the seasons and stuff. So the point being that what Augustine is retracting and saying here is, God willeth that not that only the pure should know truth. That's something too that people might agree with it, but they act like often that their little Christian group are the only ones who have the truth. That's really limiting. That's really limiting, guys. It's limiting your understanding of God. It's limiting your enjoyment of life. Truths of God are coming from all quarters. There's a lot to be divided up in this sperm whale that the tribe has pulled up from the deep and is dividing up among us. There's a lot to be assimilated here. So you really need to look, even as St. Francis would say, I will learn even from the newest novice in the monastery. And so you can also learn from all the different religions and all the even atheists, always, but keeping in mind, though, we're not saying that it's all the same and we all just believe and it's all the same. No, there is only one God. That is the God who revealed himself to Abraham and to Moses on Mount Sinai. And that one God has a logos, a mind, and that mind became flesh in the womb of the Virgin Mary. And that divine logos, before he departed in his paschal mystery, gave keys to a kingdom to Peter. And there is only one true church. All the other churches are part of the mystical body, but they have divided and been separated, not through their own fault, but through what Luther and his rebellion and all the other people before them did. It's not fully their fault. That again comes into invincible ignorance. But there is only one true chair of authority on the earth. That is the seat of Moses, that we now call the seat of Peter. That's why Jesus said very explicitly, do not do what the Pharisees do, but do what they teach. Why? Why would you do what these hypocrites and snakes teach? He called them hypocrites. He called them snakes. Why would you do what they teach? Because they sit in the seat of Moses. Jesus giving affirmation to a seat of authority on this earth. And that seat of authority was well known to be the seat of the keys of halakha. Halakha is the binding and loosing. Every Jew knew this. So when Jesus gave those keys to Peter, they knew that he was giving him the power of halakha, and it was the new Sanhedrin, and that was the authority of earth. And now we call it the chair of Peter, but it's the chair of Moses, and that's where we're at. But there's so much to be divided up that truths can come from all quarters. God is still working with all people to draw them to himself and giving them little tidbits of truth. little tidbits of, especially in cultural ways of acting, like in the Japanese. We could all learn from their order, their respect for honor. We could all become more honoring. We have the doctrine, love one another as I have loved you. Okay, that's a true doctrine of Christ. But how do you do it? The how you do it, we could learn a great deal from the Japanese. How to enjoy life and have art, we could learn a lot from the Italians.
I just want to let you know we're at 45 minutes.
We could learn a lot about love from the French. There's a lot we can learn about the things of God. By the way, when I speak about the French, the bishop that was before the guy I read from the office this morning, Theophilus of Antioch, the bishop before was named Eros of Antioch. Bishop Eros. I like it. Might have to name a kid Eros. See how that works in his life. All right, Article 13, whether by grace a higher knowledge of God can be obtained than natural reason. Objection 1, it seems that by grace a higher knowledge of God is not obtained than by natural reason. For Dionysius says that whoever is the more united to God in this life is united to him as to one entirely unknown. He says the same of Moses, who nevertheless obtained a certain excellence by the knowledge conferred by grace. But to be united to God while ignoring of him what he is comes about also by natural reason. Therefore, God is not known to us by grace. Therefore, God is not more known to us by grace than by natural reason. Thomas is going to come and say that's not true. Guys, it's all straw. Go pray and meditate.